Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Cheyenne Malone, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cheyenne Malone. You're watching another edition of The Small Business Show. Joining us now, we have Steven Pivnik. He's a serial entrepreneur and author. And today, we're discussing Steven's newest book, Built to Finish: How to Go to the Distance in Business and in Life, which, Steven, this takes readers on two journeys through having a successful, exit of his business and completing the IRONMAN World Championship, which is pretty impressive. Welcome to the show, Steven.
Thank you very much for having me.
Glad to have you. So talk to us a little bit about the book. What can we expect readers if they pick it up and read it, and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. So while I was going on my entrepreneurial journey, I think it was like a midlife crisis, if you can call turning 40 a midlife crisis. I got into endurance sports. I learned about, how to compete in a triathlon. And then I found out about this thing called the IRONMAN World Championship. And I just set this goal in my mind that some way, somehow I'm going to get there. So as I started pursuing this endurance challenge that I set for myself, I started realizing that there's a lot of similarities between endurance sports and entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
I firmly believe that entrepreneurship is an endurance sport. There's just so many similarities: planning, preparation, execution, pivots, setbacks. Everything that you go through in a race, you go through on an entrepreneurial journey. And as I was getting better at one, I started getting better at the other. And when I completed my last two finish lines, I guess, my business exit and my IRONMAN World Championship completion, I felt that I really wanted to share the journey with others in the hopes of inspiring others to, set some big goals and go after them.
Were you a big athlete before?
I was a couch potato.
Wow.
I was not an athlete at all. I was into skiing, so I was relatively active, but I was not into any sort of sports at all, which is a lot of my friends said, like, what are you doing? Like, you've never competed in any way, shape, or form, and now you want to go after triathlon? And I said, yep, that's what I want to do.
How long did you train for something like this?
So my first triathlon was a really short, it's called a sprint distance triathlon. It's the shortest one you can train for. I trained for 3 months. And after I completed that, it took me just over a year to get ready for my first Ironman. And then I needed to do many, many Ironmans before I got into the World Championship.
So we're talking about quite a big commitment, right? Some people might sign up for it or think in their mind they're going to do something, but they don't always see it through. You're doing this at the same time as pursuing your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, a lot of parallels here. Give us some specifics.
Yeah, the biggest parallel was all the record keeping. I mean, when I started training, I needed to start recording my pace, my distances covered, my calories in, my calories out, the time, et cetera, et cetera. As I started doing that, I started taking a look at my business, and I realized while we were doing pretty good on the measurement front, there was a lot of room for improvement. There was a lot more, KPIs that we could be tracking. We could be much more disciplined in terms of our record keeping and closing our books, in terms of our forecasting and things like that. So the better I got in endurance sports and tracking all of the measurements there, the better I got in having me and my team at work start tracking a lot of our performance and key performance indicators. And as a result, our business improved.
So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs that are trying to navigate their long haul journey?
Yeah, I think measurements are key. I think it's really funny. Like, I ran into a company the other day. They're a $50 million company, and their financial statements consist of cash in and cash out. And that's it. No structured P&L, no balance sheet, just they're measuring things strictly by cash, which is really silly at that sort of scale. So my advice would be to measure as much as humanly possible, really double down on the KPIs that you have, and be super, super transparent about those measurements to your entire company so that you can get as many people as possible on the same page as far as what the goals are, where you currently are, and how you're tracking towards those goals.
And, to compete in something like this, obviously it takes a great deal of mental toughness, correct? How are you able to, parlay that into your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so there was a lot of times during the growth of the company where I hit some really hard spots. Like, they say that mile 20 during a marathon is the hardest part of the race, which I totally agree. I've done dozens. When you come across some serious situations at work, like, for instance, as you're growing a company, most entrepreneurs have struggled with making payroll. And sometimes, it keeps you up at night. Like, how am I going to make this payroll that's coming up? How am I going to land this new customer? How am I going to deal with the setback of a key employee quitting? There's non-stop curveballs that are thrown at entrepreneurs, just like there's non-stop, curveballs thrown at endurance athletes. The weather changes, you start cramping up. All of a sudden, your nutrition plan isn't what you hoped it would be for the day. So learning to cope with all of these setbacks and getting back on track is key.
What else do you want readers to take away from your book?
I'm in my book, I put some tips and tricks in terms of how I go about setting large goals and how I go about setting out to accomplish them. And there's a lot of tried and proven methods. I think I put a pretty interesting twist onto it. And I want readers to leave my book thinking, you know what? That goal that I've been putting off, that large, project that I've been putting off, it really is possible if I apply some of these methodologies that I just learned. So I'm hopeful that I get a lot of feedback after readers finish the book saying, hey, Steven, thank you for getting me on this journey. And as a result, I completed something that I never thought possible in the past.
And you mentioned you were going through a midlife crisis in your 40s or turning 40. Has that opinion changed now that you've went through all of this?
It changed drastically. I think my crisis had to do with my genes. My grandparents and my parents, they had it all, from cancer to high blood pressure to diabetes to strokes. And it was as I was turning 40, it really started weighing heavily on me that I've got some bad genes in here. And I don't know if I can fight off these diseases, but if and when they come, I want to be as healthy as possible to deal with them. So that was kind of the jux of my midlife crisis. And I feel tremendously different about it right now. I feel that I've done a great job in getting into fantastic health. So should something, bad occur, like I just mentioned, I'll be in the best shape possible to address it.
You've turned it around, quietly so. All right, well, thank you so much for your time today, Steven. Any final thoughts for us?
Nope. The book is available on Amazon and every place else books are sold. So thank you very much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Steven Pivnik, serial entrepreneur and author. And thank all of you for watching The Small Business Show exclusively right here on ASBN.com and now streaming on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Cheyenne Malone, exclusively on ASBN.com.